Hello and welcome to Spectrum News. Buhari swears in 4 permanent secretaries. Rep summons trade ministry officials on nuclear weapons in Ukraine. Details of these stories and more in this afternoon is a report that President Muhammadu Buhari has sworn in Idris Jedi Agba, Kachalom Daju, Shehu Ibrahim and Ibrahim Gambari. Report has it that a minute's silence was observed in honor of former Aviation, Minister of Labour and Productivity, and Minister of Tourism, and joined his administration's drive to end insecurity. The president made the call when the president, who described insecurity as a common enemy bedeviling the country, noted that all hands must be urged leaders of political parties to make firm commitments towards peaceful and successful 2023 general elections and challenged them to work Jaji as the new Controller General, CG of the Federal Fire Service, Secretary to the Civil Defense, Immigration and Prison Service Board, CD, before his appointment, is taken over from Acting Controller General as a higher technical officer in 1991. Farmers and headers at about $14 billion. Senior Special Assistant to the President on Agriculture, Andrew. On legislative matters, Speaker of the House of Representatives Femi Gbajabiamila, according to Gbajabiamila during a visit to the Speaker of the UK's House of Commons, issues through legislation. To MTN by the Federal Ministry of Trade and Industry Chairman of the House Committee Office of the Auditor General of the Federation. He disclosed that the Auditor General of the Federation had a report. OK explained that the OAUGF, in its report, observed that the Federal Inland Revenue Service, FIRS, accorded value to reflecting the whole assets procured by the company. The strike in the country. In a statement by the ministry's acting head of press and public relations, Patience Onuobia, Ngige alleged that ASU was making negotiations difficult. Progressive Congress APC's presidential ticket. Ayade, who made the announcement at the ASU Villa Abuja, said President Buhari had asked him forms. On security, Department of State Services, DSS, has said some criminal elements plan to return. Officer Peter Afunaya raised the alarm in a statement in Abuja, where he stated that while the DSS had received reports on and pattern of violence attacks and asked Nigerians to go about their lawful businesses in the state to ensure a crime-free society. He said partnership with journalists is very essential as the media is critical. Jay paid him a courtesy visit at his office in Maiduguri. He commended the Inspector General of Police, IGP Alkali Usman Baba, of barracks, police colleges, divisional police stations, salary increments, amongst others in the health sector, have been called upon to ensure that the aim of the World Health Organization, WHO's global nation of malaria, in line with the program. Our correspondent completes the report. To revitalize the ailing factories and activate the newly built industries across the state to reduce capital flight. Okpon gave the assurance on
with overwhelming ahead of party nominations for candidates running for political offices in the 2023 general elections. A top aspirant for the governorship race from interest groups, youths and the elderly across the various wards in Uyo local government area in the state. He stressed that the state needed a spiritual intervention to get things working.
Akwa Ibom State is a consumer community. No consumer community, a consumer people and a consumer nation. You have the highest level of capital flight. Yes. So why is that so? Those trees that are not functioning. Our children are coming out of school. They are not going to be employed in their own home, where they have over 100 federal coming. As an intercessor, we have prayed over the land since 1994 up until now. God has given us what to do.
Create jobs and engender export.
We are Aniekan for Spectrum Television.
says journalists have been barred from accessing the venue of the polls to be held in a heavily fortified Air Force hangar. After delays of more than a year, Abdullahi Farmajo and Prime Minister Mohammed Hussein Robo over who should handle security at the elections venue. Somalia has been in a political limbo since last February following the expiration of precedent, arguing it could create budget difficulties and destabilize the society in the long run. Rwandan opposition lawmaker Frank Habinezer's comment comes weeks after the adding that they could settle in the African country. As still to come on our news this afternoon, Chukwueze leads Nigerian players in UEFA titles. Well, thanks for staying with us on Spectrum News at this hour. And now to news from the foreign scene, Moscow with retaliatory strikes. The escalation comes as Russia agitates over the West Tree. Lloyd Austin said rhetoric from Moscow and threats of nuclear war are very dangerous and unhelpful. Boris Johnson has insisted that he does not see Russian President Vladimir Putin ability of his country deploying its chemical weapon. However, Johnson noted that instead of still on the foreign scene, a court in military ruled Myanmar in February 2021 when a military coup ousted her elected government has $1,000 bribe in form of cash and gold bars from the former head of organizations and right groups have condemned the court trials as a shame. On our business news, reporters, Lara Cohen's Twitter's global head of partners reacted with anger to Musk and his followers' attack Vijaya Gadde for censoring stories about Hunter Biden's laptop. On business news, reports coming in says telecommunication companies have lost about 75.78 billion naira as subscribed telecommunication companies to bar defaulting consumers from making outgoing calls. Notification had expired on March 31. As a result, still in business, clearing agents operating in NCS. At the launch of the vehicle's identification number VIN for violation of import factor in annual depreciation as required for used vehicles. Following their complaints and in line with Article 2 of the World Trade Management staff to engage stakeholders in a town hall meeting in Lagos, which led to the approval of a 30-day to allow for the manual release of vehicles in the interim, which has left the world blind to the virus continuing a rampage, and its potential months simply stop looking for COVID-19 cases. Speaking at the press conference hosted by WHO, despite the fact that there is now more access to accurate testing ever than before. To 2030 to serve as a roadmap for achieving the scheme's mandate, executives has commenced with efforts aimed at attainment of universal health coverage in 2019. He has unfolded a three-point rebranding agenda to enable him transform and reorient the scheme to has refused to close the door on a possible return to Roma following a stellar performance in the Spanish Segunda again. Umar's performance in Roma's under-19 was enough to convince the Serie A giants Bologna, Torino, NAC Breda, Glasgow Rangers and Still in sports, Nigeria's players in 21/2022 European competitions. Samuel Chukwueze leads the pack with Spanish side Villarreal take list of Nigerians who have won the tournament, the trio and Chelsea respectively. Series titled Never Late African Time. No holds barred conversations with Africa's foremost talents, talking all on Africa's Netflix YouTube page, Spotify and Apple. Yes, Catherine Kamau Karanja, popularly known, and South Africa's iconic thespian Israel Matsik. And that's all we have for you at this time. Do ensure to follow us on